Hi, this is Sue Greenwald with Awakened Stories. I'm here today with Deanna Carr with the Mystical Moonlight. Hey, Deanna, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm great. We're having some technical issues because they never want us to talk, but we're going to try to muscle through this. And one other thing I want to say is I'm kind of feeling like we want to talk about the origins of the U.S. and some of the stories about the U.S. that we've been told. Okay. So we're going to just kind
Mhm.
of do a glossy overview of each topic. And for those that are watching, if you have questions, please give us all the questions and we'll answer them gladly. Okay. All right, first topic, Christopher Columbus. So every one of us in the US are taught that Christopher Columbus was commissioned by Queen Isabella of Spain way back when in the 1400s. He discovered America basically. And when he came to America, it was a beautiful, lush land with a lot of land, diverse geography. There were, we're going to call them wild savages all throughout the land, what we would call Native Americans. And that's kind of like the brief story of what we're told, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? So, all
hmm
right, Columbus was Italian in origin, but he went to Spain to get his commission to come over to the US. Is that correct?
He did. Now he had an interesting backstory because he wanted to go explore, but it wasn't necessarily for land. He actually was looking for riches.
Like minerals, diamonds, jewels,
Mhm.
gold.
So that way he could be pretty much paid to go on an adventure, but he would find these gems, jewels, gold, whatever it might be, and keep it for himself. So he had an alternative motive when doing that.
Okay. So when he goes over to Spain, what was Spain's motive in sending him over this away?
Well, the thing about countries is they want to expand. They think that they are all that, even when they might not have everything under control.
Right.
So they thought that if they expanded, it would be really fun, but they realized that they had limited space to go with. It's either starting a war or fighting somewhere else. And that is what they started to do. So they were okay with him traveling for them because it was some resources for them, but it wasn't going to take a lot for them to do.
Right. So basically, they wanted to colonize without any of the work, right?
Yes.
Okay. So they gave him, well, we're taught three boats or ships.
hmm
Is that correct?
It's five. They
Five.
gave them two extra.
Ah,
Yeah, but what happened was the two extra ended up getting into, I don't know if it's bad seas, but they ended up getting lost and then they were taken over by pirates because pirates were a thing back then.
oh, yeah. So there were
Mm.
five ships, not three. Of course, we're not taught about them. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So did they get separated when the other two got lost or whatever? They weren't like,
Yeah, the other two got lost.
okay.
They were supposed to be traveling together. The thing about going over open sea is it changes.
Yeah.
So they did hit points where the sea was too chaotic for them to stay close to each other, and that is the point that they got lost. And the captains of those ships were not able to understand their location and figure out what their next destination was.
Okay. Wow. That's a pretty big point that we're not taught.
hmm
Okay. All right. Now, we've heard theories that instead of coming right to the US, Columbus ends up down in the Caribbean, right? So
Yes.
he lands and he meets the islanders, but he doesn't treat them very well. He treats them as pawns, as slaves, and I've heard rumors that he's a cannibal. Okay, what is true there? Did he go to the islands instead of directly to the mainland of the U.S.?
Yeah, he ended up going there by accident. He thought he was going to end up a little bit further up.
Yep.
But at that point, they kind of just wanted to hit lands, and that is when they realized their destination. He is not a good person, and he is not nice to people in any sort. Even his own crew, he was not nice to.
Okay. When you say not nice, like describe what not nice means.
Not nice, aggressive, and I'm not saying like aggressive as in just like the verbal. He's like a physical aggressive, like
Uh,
easily set off,
Uh-huh.
will harm you if able to. He would be the type that he would kill somebody if he could.
Okay. And see, we
Yeah.
honor him, right? We're taught to honor him. Okay.
Yeah.
So he lands down in the Caribbean somewhere. Okay. I don't
Mhm.
actually remember the island. I hate to tell you. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Okay. And he goes and they're all like, oh, and they let him rest and restock and all that for a couple of years. And then he comes back north up to the mainland of the US. So how
Yeah.
much of that is true?
They didn't let him restock. They didn't have a choice.
Okay.
They came to the islands, but they did have more of the weaponry. Like they went to a spot that didn't really have to focus about, bad people coming in.
Right.
They were just kind of living.
Hmm.
Um, and after this is where a turning point for them because they realized that they had to figure something out to protect themselves
Right.
once they finally left because they came in, they took resources, they took people's houses, they took beds, and I'm sure they were horrible people to
Yeah.
the actual islanders.
Right. Okay. So they basically, what's the name for that? Quartered themselves. I think that's the word. But they just basically took over and took whatever they wanted without recourse. And the islanders couldn't protect themselves. Now, was there cannibalism involved? Sorry
Yeah,
about that. There was.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
Columbus was a cannibal.
Yes.
Did that happen on the ship on the way over?
Yeah. So if you have you ever heard of like what's it? I don't know if it's called sea brain. There's a word for it where they go crazy on the ocean.
Hmm.
Like they lose their minds.
Yeah.
Um, there was a point in time where that happened to him. I had to look up the name of it. I can't remember. But at this point, he ended up getting that because the distance was long and doing the same thing over and over with the same people gets very consuming of the brain. And he hit this one point of, hunger, wanting something different and he was going psychotic. So, yes, he ended up killing one of his crewmates and eating them.
And the other guys knew about that.
Yeah, and some of them did participate because they wanted to.
Was he a cannibal before he got on the ship to come over?
No, he was just an angry person.
Ah, okay, okay. So he wasn't like in, go ahead.
Yeah, no, he wasn't a cannibal beforehand. It was like something switched within him, and then it was like, I'm just gonna do this, and then he just continued.
Wow. So was he maybe possessed by, say, a demon or an entity?
I mean, I guess you could call it that, but I don't see him being possessed. I see him actually like flipping the switch. Like, I need to remember that. It's basically they lose their mind, they lose part of their sanity,
Mhm.
and it's basically starting to reverse into more of an animalistic way.
Okay.
And that's why they always say you need specific things on a ship. One of them I remember is limes,
Yeah.
but that is for something else.
Scurvy.
But
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, he lost his mind on that, and it was just I like he proceeded to do the actions that he wanted. There was no thought process. Like before, there was intellectual, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. But after this point in time on that ship, he lost that point. It was, I'm hungry, eat. I'm
Okay.
hungry, do this. And he did it. There was no, okay, well, if I do that, I'm taking somebody else. There was no thought of that. There was no emotion to it. It was, I'm just going to do it.
Okay. So he
Yeah.
goes to the island and he did that a couple more times or a few more times.
Yes. Now he did keep it more hidden there because at this point there was some thought process. If people saw me do this, I would be next. So there was a point where it was, I'm going to do this, but discreetly.
Wow. Okay. Okay. All right. So he's there for, let's say, a couple years. All right. Then he gets back in the ship and they go up to the mainland US. Is that kind of correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know where he landed?
They always say like the Delaware area, but I'm getting it's more towards like the Carolinas.
Middle of the coast. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Like
so
you
he
didn't really go that much further up.
okay. So that's still a long trip, right? And this is the sailing ships, the big, tall ships or the clipper ships, right? Okay.
Yep.
So they land there. What happens next?
They land there, they get out, and they realize that it is vast. It is open. They realize it's not as overpopulated as the island was. Like the island wasn't overpopulated, but they had more people. Like it was more common to see people. Whereas here it was, more lush, not as many people, and beautiful scenery. And it was beautiful,
Yeah. Yeah.
And they decided that they're going to get out and start to explore. But the thing about Native Americans is they don't always go right onto the beach. They're going to go into spaces that are suitable and habitable. And beaches aren't not necessarily the best place to set up shop, especially in that time frame. Um, so after a while of them wandering, and this is not like in one day, this is like a few days later, they start to see tracks and traces of humans. And that is when they get introduced to Native Americans.
Okay. Okay. And the Native Americans, were they friendly? Like maybe they were cautious, but were they generally friendly or were they hostile as we've been taught?
Oh, they were not hostile. They were on guard. I mean,
Yeah.
you have a whole new to that. I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
somebody normal. Like when you see somebody that doesn't look normal to you, you kind of like, what is going on? Who are you?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's always that thought process. Like no
Yeah.
matter who you are, there's always this like discernment. Like I don't know you. You look a little bit different. I'm putting my guard up.
Yeah.
But they were not hostile.
Okay.
And they were trying to just feel it out. Like who are they? Like that is a huge question. Like who are
Yeah.
these people? Why are they
Yeah.
here? So there was more of that type of interaction. And there was peaceful moments because they wanted to see where these people were from, what they were doing, and vice versa. They were both kind of testing the waters.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So how long did they have the boats there? How long did they remain?
The boats remained for a while. They didn't have a location to set them in like an actual like boat.
A harbor or a
Well,
port?
yeah, they just kind of
Yeah.
like sailed it up and then took the small boats up closer.
Yeah. Okay.
But they stayed there for a while, like at least a month or two
Oh, okay.
before
And
then they started moving upwards.
okay. And then what happened, like ultimately what happened to Christopher Columbus? Like kind of speed us through what's happened. Like he does some horrible things, he lands, meets these Native Americans, then what happens?
That is when he started to decipher two things. One, is it worth coming here? And two, can I create the space that I want? And you have to think you're going from two different cultures. You're going from one culture that is being built up, it is more materialistic, to a culture that is n more on the nature side and going with the bare minimum or the bare necessities
Right.
to get by. So you
Yeah.
have two different lifestyles that are going to start to clash.
Yeah.
So to him, he realized that they weren't as advanced as them. And if they wanted to, they could definitely take over. So that was that thought process.
Right.
Moving forward, they did try to build a bond, trying to make it more easy. But they didn't want that. They wanted their lifestyle. They didn't understand why their lifestyle was bad. And they got to a point where that's when they started clashing. Like, I don't want this here. And instead of trying to find a different location, they decided to start going on a killing spree.
Wow. Okay. So basically, they wiped out as many of the Native Americans as they could handle.
Yes.
All right. So, and we know that, we know how big the US, it's pretty big, right? And it was highly wooded, lots of natural resources. So there's a lot of people on this continent, but they
Yeah.
decided to take them on.
hmm
Okay. What else should we know about what Columbus did?
well, we always give him credit for finding this place, but technically it was already found.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, he's not a good person. He really shouldn't be celebrated. And honestly, like I've said this to people before, like, America, we've built this up to this country that's so materialistic. It's so about work, 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 which is crazy because the founders of this country, the Native Americans, were work for what you need, take what you need, and
Yeah.
pretty much enjoy life. Like you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
need the extras.
Yeah.
So it is kind of crazy to think about where this country and this culture has taken it.
Yeah.
And I always say, like, we try to live with that kind of ideal. Like, even though we do still have some materialistic items, we still try to live by, like, what do we need? What are we
Right.
taking from?
Right.
Do we really need it?
Right.
And that is a different mindset.
Yeah.
So,
So he basically claimed this land on behalf of Spain. Is that correct?
yes.
And we know Spain, France, England, like pretty much everyone, were fighting over the US. They had territories, they took over this. There was a lot of colonialism, a lot of fighting about the land
Mhm.
and the territory. And now we've got our own country now, but it was inhabited before they came, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do you
But
want to
is
say?
it?
Huh?
It's the question. Is it? Do we have America? I feel
Mm,
like we keep asking this question.
yeah.
To me, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
To me, this doesn't make sense. Like, how do you go from you're trying to leave Spain, you find a country, then they come in, you start building up, and then you have a whole fight about it. You win, but everybody's best friends. I don't know if I'm a petty person, but if somebody comes in and kills a whole bunch of people, I'm not going to be friends with them. Are you crazy? I mean, people that aren't involved in it, yeah, that's one thing, but we're talking about the government like putting us against each other, you know? I'm not going to try like I guess that's just my thought process of like it just seems odd how all of a sudden we had these clashing wars and then the governments are friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ally.
I mean, well, because it's not them dying, it's the people dying.
I
But
know. Well, I know that, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why people go with orders because usually they don't have a choice. Either they're forced into it or they don't think that they have options,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So these people went to war thinking that this was the only option to save what they believed in, right? And then we have the governments that are pinning it. They're playing it. So you have to do this if you want this land, if you want to keep your freedom, if you whatever it is to make these people
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
But then you see the governments, they're pitting each other against each other, but then all of a sudden they're friends. And that's what I don't comprehend, like why people are so for these governments when it logically doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And think of it too. We have a day here in the US. We have Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
Where first we have Columbus Day. I think that's in October every year. We have a day off. It's a federal holiday, I think.
Yeah.
And we honor Columbus for finding this great country, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So look what we're honoring, okay? Then we've got Thanksgiving, which is a big deal as well, where we're basically the story is that we landed on the shore, the Indians showed us how to grow our own food here, blah 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 blah, blah. And they shared a big meal there with the people that settled here along with the Indians or the Native Americans. And so we're taught that, we're celebrating to honor that, which I think is a lot of BS, but we haven't talked about all of that yet. It just seems
Yeah.
like when you look at history, nothing seems like what we were taught, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay. Anything else we should say about Christopher Columbus and the discovery of America? Part one out of a billion. There's
I
so
I
there's
mean,
so
there's so
much.
much to talk about. So
Yeah.
I think we're good. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, if you guys have questions, I know there's going to be a part two to this. Like, I already know. Um, but you know how I love to compare stuff to movies and videos and stuff? For some reason, Elsa came into my mind. And you know Opal, she loves her Elsa. She loves the videos.
Oh, Frozen.
And
Yeah.
Frozen.
Yeah. Okay.
In the second movie, and I'm sure some of you probably haven't watched it, but in the second
Thank
movie,
God, no.
they they I know this, but this for some reason this just like clicked in my head, and this is relating back to Finding America. Okay.
Okay.
So part of it is, all of a sudden the woods light up, they glow, and she's being called to them. So she goes on this adventure with her sister and everybody, and they go into the woods and they find this locked in section in the woods where people have been locked in for 30 years, where you have basically Native Americans and you have like the pilgrims, the castle people, who like the bad guys in the sense. They were all locked into this space for 30 years. They still didn't get along, they were still fighting. And they're trying to figure out what started this. And it was all about water. It was all about resource. And when you get down to it, is they were taking a resource from the Native Americans. And instead of sharing said resource, they killed them off. So I don't know why. It just clicked with me. I was like, that scene, because I tell people like sometimes it's hard to imagine, them telling us what happens in our reality. And for some reason, that scene just popped into my head.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. And I think I think in the next, few years, we're going
mm,
to find so much out about our geography, how it's not what we've been taught, but our history is so different. What they've done to the people in the land is going to blow our minds. And I mean, we're just tiptoeing into it. We don't know
yeah,
everything,
yeah,
yet. But how fascinating is this? So
yeah.
thank you so much. And for those that are watching, please let us know your questions. We will address them in the near future. Okay. Thank you so much, Deanna. I appreciate your time.
Of course.
All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.